Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, this is Craig. Before we get started, I just want to let you know the interview you're about to hear is an interview with just a beautiful human being. He's a deep spiritual guy, smart guy, got a lot of kindness and love in him. There's going to be a little spottiness from time to time. It's not bad, but just bear in mind, Ehsaan's in Bombay and I'm here in Tampa. So man, technology is only so limited. The fact that we could do this, I look at it as a miracle, but honestly, it's not that bad. It's probably been worse correspondence, but it frustrated me. So anyway, thanks for listening and appreciate you bearing with it. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I've got a really great guest today, a super cool guy, and somebody who in his native country of India is the kind of guy they roll the red carpet out for. And I will tell you right now, there come no gentler, kinder, nicer people. We're with Ehsaan Noorani, and I want to first thank Warren Mendonca from Blackstrap Blues, our mutual friend, for connecting us. So shout out to Warren. Ehsaan's, right? Ehsaan. Yeah, man. Ehsaan's an Indian composer and guitarist. He's currently living in Mumbai. He's part of the Shankar-Ehsaan-Loy trio, and they are one of the most prolific writers and performers of Bollywood music. And I just want to step back. If you remember the interview I had with Warren Mendonca, he explained that over in India, soundtracks really carry music, pop music in general. So Ehsaan, being one of the writers of the top performers and writers of Bollywood music, he's like that celebrity. He studied at Musicians Institute actually in California from 85 to 86. And he's the first guitarist from India to be endorsed by Fender Guitars and has a Squire Signature model to his name. He also endorses Fractal Audio and D'Addario Strings. In 2015, he was co-judge in India's first Western reality show called The Stage. He also were you on TV every night to do that?
Yeah. Now we're waiting for the fourth season to start.
Oh, dude, that's really cool.
Done 3 seasons.
I'll ask you. I didn't ask you questions about it, but I'm going to. He also performs with other top Indian singers, guitarists, and sitar players, performing blues, pop, and electronica. I would encourage you to check him out online. He's a really great blues player. Again, his name is spelled Ehsaan, Ehsaan Noorani, Noorani. He's a great blues and funk player, and check out his Instagram account. I'll give you that later, but he does some good stuff on there. He, along with his band Shankar-Ehsaan-Loy, have won numerous awards for best music and production in a variety of Bollywood movies. Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Really looking forward to this. I've been glad that you asked you to come.
Oh, man. Pleasure's mine. You kidding? So in the 80s, you go to LA to study at GIT, and
yeah,
that seems like a pretty big decision and a huge move for a 19, 20-year-old kid in India to do that. What prompted behind that?
Well, actually, I'll tell you the story about how I found out about GIT is that when, I went to Singapore for a holiday with my folks, and we were staying in this hotel, and in the bar downstairs, there was this band playing, and there was this guitar player, I can't remember his name. Anyway, but he played an ES335, and he's playing some really cool stuff. So, I asked him, where do you learn all that from? He's saying, no, I played guitar before I went. I remember his name now. His name is Spencer. And he's saying, I went to this place called GIT, and, he said, you should go there. And my folks who were with me, they said, yeah, man, why don't you just call them up tonight and get their prospectus and stuff.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So literally from the Singapore hotel room, I called up MI and I spoke to Rebecca Hicks, which was Pat, she's Pat Hicks's wife. And I told her, gave her the address in Bombay, that can you send me your prospectus and the application form? And that was it.
Holy shit. Oh my God. What wonderful parents you have.
I was lucky, really lucky.
Wow, that is incredible. Oh, just call him up and go. Holy shit. Oh my
Well,
God.
actually,
I've got like,
parents, this was my uncle and aunt actually who kind of brought me up because my father died when I was really small. When I was 6 years old,
oh wow,
and he
sorry.
died. So his brother was like my guardian, and in many ways, he was like my benefactor. So, to whatever I've achieved right now, studying music, even getting into music was all really due to him, which
That's
is pretty
great.
cool.
Give him a shout out, man. What's his name?
But he died too.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh Lord, man. I don't want to become too friendly with you. God knows what the hell is going to happen. I'll need to call out your spiritual stuff before the end of this yet. So then you just packed up and went over to LA. That was that.
Yeah, that was it, man. I landed up in LA, and there's a very funny story about me when I landed up in LA because I was I had some cousins there who were supposed to pick me up from the airport. And I had no idea how big LA was. It's like LA is not. It's like a country in itself. And so I get to the airport, and I've been cleaned out in Singapore because they didn't let me carry my guitar on board. So I was like, I paid all money in this baggage. I got to LA, and there was no one there to pick me up. Man. So I said, like, man, what do I do? I'm just standing outside this airport, and I'm tired, and I'm like getting feverish because March LA was not cold, but it was cold for me coming from the tropics.
Sure. Luckily,
I met this Pakistani gentleman. He came up to me and asked me if I knew an immigration lawyer. So I said, man, how? I'm lost out here, man.
Do you know an immigration lawyer?
And I'm stuck in LA. But he was so sweet. He said, you can make a collect call. So I said, I don't know how to make a collect call. So he showed me how to do it. Okay. And he was very sweet. He bought me a burger and, and got me a Coke. And it was something like, there's a lot of things that have happened in my life which are like karmic,
It's really so karma. Cool, man.
So I was able to call up my cousins and they came and picked me up and, whatever.
Wow. No, but that being said, you're the kind of person, you're very approachable. I mean, I don't know you very well, but you're very approachable. You're extremely nice. You give off great energy, so you see a guy standing alone like you're the person you want to help that guy, man, you want to help that guy because he's being, you can tell you're a genuine person and stuff like that. So that's wild. So your cousins came up. All right. So once you got there, what were the biggest cultural differences that you had to assimilate?
Well, actually, the thing is, coming from India, America is not a different country. It's a different world. And in fact, in many ways, it still is. It's completely different. The people are different. But it is so surprising that the first person that I met in school was this guy called Chris Gill, who I'll tell you about later on in the thing,
cool,
in the interview. But he was just like me. I mean, like pretty much very grounded, very family oriented, and we just became friends, and that was really cool. But the other thing that I saw was how cutthroat people were. There were all these guys who wanted to be musicians, and some of them wanted to be rock stars, and the whole hustle of what goes on there. The thing is that we were very sheltered, being in the music business here, which is not even a music business. I just played with the band. But when you go there, you see guys. I mean, like there were guys who were dressed up like they were on, 1985. It was heavy metal. So the guys were dressed up like in spandex and with all the hair open. And I said, "Oh man,
for class."
Yeah, they'd come that way, man.
Wow.
They'd come, carrying their shovels and their, the Kramer guitars and stuff like that. Not necessarily good players, but they looked great. Like rock.
He's not good, but he looks great.
And it was this thing. I mean, MI was on Hollywood Boulevard, and at that time, in the 80s, they called Hollywood Hollyweird.
Yeah.
There was Hells Angels around, and there were weirdos around, and there were drug dealers around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in the middle of it. We don't experience that kind of stuff here. I mean, at least in the extent that you see it you saw it in LA,
Which is mind-boggling because the population there is like, isn't it like close to 2 billion people? Yeah. So that's 6 times the population in an area, maybe 1.5 times bigger, or right?
Right.
So, and yet you don't experience that there. That is wild.
I mean, there is all that stuff going on, but the thing is, in America, when you see that, especially in a place like Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard, there are all these guys who haven't made it, and they're like, I mean, the first day when I walked out at lunchtime, there was a man who's like, he was wrapped up in silver foil from head to toe, like a Met mummy walking on the road. And I said, man, where have I come? And
Did you think that was normal? Like everybody's going to be, maybe that's just a thing that we do here.
I knew that wasn't normal, but I knew that I had to come to this place to go to school every day.
Wow.
And that I heard the stories about people getting knifed at the back, behind on Yucca Street and, Highland Avenue at the back of Hollywood Boulevard.
Wow.
That happened then. Now it's all been cleaned up, I believe. It's really cool now. But then Hollywood was like, you had to be a little careful.
Interesting. So everything was pretty much different then.
Very different, yeah.
Were you staying on a dorm or were you living with your family?
Well, actually, initially I stayed with a very good friend of my uncle's who in fact stayed in a beautiful place up in the Hollywood Hills.
Great.
And he was kind to let me stay with him for 2-3 months. Of course, I paid him rent and stuff like that. But it was very good because I was like new to America. I was very young in the head, even though I was like, 22.
That's young.
I was like, and I was just a child in the head, but still. So he kind of guided me and, made me meet the right people and that kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool. But school, the first day of school when I got there, I was blown away. It was fabulous, and on our orientation day when we had the first day in class, not in class, in the school, the guy in front of you was made to turn his chair around and interview you. And then he introduced you to the school. Apparently that's some Dale Carnegie kind of thing, to do, to break stage fright. And the guy who I interviewed was a guy called John Walmsley, who had actually acted in a serial called The Waltons.
Wow.
And
yeah. That was like one of the most popular series in the history of American TV at that time.
Yeah, and he went on to become Richard Marx's guitar player.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so it was really cool, and so we had all these guys and, and of course I was nervous as hell. To talk in front of a class of like people who are from a different country, not from different countries, who probably think that you talk funny or you got some kind of strange accent or something. So I'm standing there introducing this guy to the school. But it was pretty cool.
Hindsight, now that there's like millions of Indian people all over this country, especially in the big cities, right? So it would, for anybody there that would not have heard an Indian accent, I couldn't imagine that. Even if they're from a small town,
right.
There's the Indians are very ingratiated into this American society. That's really cool, man.
Of course.
Okay, so you stayed at school for what, 1 year or 2 years?
No, that time it was just 1 year.
Okay.
It was just 1 year, yeah.
When you finished, was there ever like, maybe I should stay here thought?
Well, actually, the thing is that I did think about it. And I also thought that, maybe I should go to Berkeley after this. But, my folks were not going to pay out the money, that time.
Yeah.
So I figured, let me get back, and just see what's happening back home and then try and come back later. But then I came,
That's so cool. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't.
Sorry. Then I came back to Bombay and, my friends came to the airport. That whole thing about coming back after a year and it's like all fun and we got drunk and this and that. And then woke up in the morning and I looked out of my window and I said, like, what the hell am I going to do now, man? I'm here in India. I've been to MI. I've been to music school. Now, what do I do? But just like I said, it was karma, man. The phone rang on the second day that I was back from Bombay. And there's a story behind that, and the thing is that in the music industry in Bombay, especially at that time in advertising, there's a clear-cut difference between the people who compose Western music, which could include any form of Western music, and the guys who compose Indian music. There's like jingles and stuff like that, which could be classically based, but also using like, Western instruments like, drums and all the whole lot. But the compositional style and stuff was very different. And even the musicians were very different. So I think that there's this guitar player called Leslie Lewis, who was like the in-studio player at that time. He decided that he wanted to go become a producer and not, play freelance guitar for anybody anymore. And there was this void. So I came in literally 2 days, 2 days after he quit. And the phone rang out of the blue of the composer saying that, man, Ehsaan, would you be free to play a jingle for me? I said, sure, I'll come. I even played bass, for him on that day. And that was it. It just happened, And yeah, man. And the thing is that I didn't even stay for graduation, because graduation day, I actually missed it because if I stayed for graduation, my ticket back to Bombay would have cost me like $300 or $400 more.
Oh, okay.
I really couldn't afford that at that time. So it's just to see the way things were pointed out, that, man, you get back to Bombay at the right time. to have to where there's this void in the industry, and you get a call to play, and next thing you're in. You become a professional musician from day 2 when you're back.
All right, so a few questions there. That's a really cool story. The first question I have, just to explain to me, and I would have bet a bunch of the listeners, you said there's a pretty big gap between compositional work with Indian music, classical Indian music, and Western music.
Yeah.
Are both of these styles are used in Bollywood movies?
Of course, but the thing is, at that time, both the styles were used a lot. Now it's kind of amalgamated. It's become like a fusion of things. Like the entire Western. There's hip hop and there's everything. But at that time, there was a very clear cut set of composers who only composed in Hindi and the local. We've got like how many languages in India? So the thing is that they compose in those languages. And the compositional style is different. The arrangement style is different. They used to write everything in 2/4 because they like the chord. They like to change the chords on every part of the melody. It's not like singing notes that clash against a chord or are like an extension of a chord. They like the chords to change. So it's all a very different thought process.
That's
and
wild.
then there were a few guys, including this lovely keyboard player called Louis Banks. In fact, he toured the USA last year with Zakir Hussain, and he used to do jingles. Like using the jazz influence, using the rock influence. So there was a clear-cut style between the two at that time, because advertising was really booming at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for explaining that. So when you get this call, like who hooked you up? Like who was how did they know you?
I knew this, musician in the sense that he played with a band in India. His name is Ronnie. And he played with this band, and I knew the drummer from the band. And I think just somehow the drummer must have mentioned that Ehsaan is back from America.
Holy
and that
crap.
was it. And that was it, man. Yeah.
Did coming back from America and a year at Musicians Institute, did it in a sense give you some street cred with musicians?
Of course.
That's cool.
Because the thing is that, here is this guy who's made the move.
Yeah.
And got started. In fact, a lot of Indians went to MI after that.
Really? So you broke were you the first student from India there?
No, I was the second. There was a guy before me who also went.
Very cool.
And I was the second musician, yeah, for sure.
That's great. Okay, so you get this call. So the other question I want to ask you is, I'm getting the feeling from you that you are either intuitive or you're the kind of person that really works hard at listening to the energy of the world. Not to sound like I'm from California, but
no. You hit the nail right on the head, actually, man. That I think you're intuitive too. That if you're figuring out that about me, you know what I mean?
That's very funny. That is very funny. It's like looking at those pictures. The picture of a guy looking into a picture, something like that, right? Yeah. But so have you always been like that, where you sort of like try to feel it's a weird thing when you can sort of do that. I don't even know how to put it into words, but the
thing is that I guess I'm very heart driven. Everything that I've done has been really out of emotion and about feeling. And a lot of it, in fact, that's also a mistake that sometimes you make, that you don't use your head and you use your heart. But by and by, it's worked for me, and everything that's happened for me has been literally like an energy that's pushed me in the right direction. And I think that's really, really good.
That's great, man. That's so rewarding to hear that. I have not always been like that, to be honest. I've always been able to I've always been intuitive about others, but I have not only maybe in the last 5 or 6 years really been more open and trusting of the universe to guide me.
Right.
I always had the power, but I never used it for myself because I'm hard headed. Right. But I'm glad I sipped the Kool-Aid now. All right. So you get into playing jingle. So is that the guy calls you play bass? Is that how you got into playing jingles then?
Yeah, that's it, man. And the jingles recorded in someone's house. This guy who had a home studio. We went there, and it was actually a scratch jingle, like a demo jingle. So there were 2 versions of it, and I played on both. And I played rhythm, and I played a bit of lead, and I played bass as well. And that was it. This guy started calling me from there. Other composers started calling me. And then I got the big call because, like I said, there was this keyboard player called Louis Banks. And you must actually Google him because he's really good.
I'm going to write his name down.
Yeah, Louis Banks. Louis UIS Banks.
Yep.
Then he played with Zakir Hussain. He's played with John McLaughlin and quite a few people.
Those are some top. I know Zekero. I know. I interviewed his guitar player. He's got some top people on staff.
So that way. And then I got a call to work with him, and he was like a man. Like, I don't know where that man got his creativity from, because he was like, I mean, he could create like 4 or 5 jingles in a day. We'd record 4 or 5 jingles in a day with him. And like, it'd be like you get to their work at 9 o'clock and you finish at 9 o'clock and you've done a lot of work in between. But the fun thing was that I also worked with this band, which is called Louis Banks and the Hoods, which is like a very, stepping into jazz. I mean, not hardcore jazz, because that's what I couldn't do. But, a lot of like fusion, like Al Jarreau and, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of learning in terms of playing that style of music and performing, which was great fun. And of course, talking to him, because he's such a great jazz musician. You'd always ask him that, Louis, I've got this dominant chord, and what are the other extensions that I can use on top and stuff like that. And he was always open to explain. And so we were a bunch of musicians who worked with him, and it was constant growth every day. So that was pretty cool.
So you were using the jingles to supper money, and then you were to eat and pay your living, and then you were going out and gigging at night, playing the music you wanted to play for fun. Yeah. Wow. So your talent and skill curve during that period of time must have really gone off the roof.
It did. And in fact, the guy who played drums with Louis, and he was also Louis' drum programmer at that time, because we used program drums. He is the drummer right now playing with the Fourth Dimension, which is John McLaughlin's band.
Yeah.
And
wow.
his name is Ranjit Barot. And the thing is that at that time when we were working together, we started songwriting together, the two of us, not writing stuff that was for commercials and stuff, but like songwriting, and it was like very like progressive pop, and very very harmonically rich music, but with lovely melody and like lovely pop melodies which anybody would relate to. And we formed a band actually called Mickey's New Home, which played this music. We played it for a little while, but then after that we kind of everybody got into trying to earn a living, and that kind of broke up.
That's a cool name, Mickey's New Home.
But that was a lot of learning experience, because Ranjit is such a talented drummer and such a talented musician, that we literally fed off each other. And that,
I'll tell you something. What's really interesting. We here in America know nothing about what's going on there. Like when I discovered Warren, I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I'm being honest. So wait a minute. They have blues music in India? Like, of course but of course you're going to have that. It sounds like very, all of my Indian friends and listeners listening to this, you can laugh at me because I know it's very laughable, but that's how we think, because our exposure here, a Western white exposure to Indian music is you're watching a movie and a guy walks into an Indian restaurant and there's some Indian, or a guy walks into a convenience store and there's some music playing. That's it, man. I've listened to music 50 years. I've never heard anything remotely Indian from an Indian musician on the radio, Right. So this is like a whole new world. It's very ignorant. I know that to assume that 2 billion people don't make blues or pop, but we don't get exposed to it. It's really weird, man. It's
right. And there's some great musicians here, and especially guitar players.
Oh my God, there's tons of them. I mean, tons of them. Okay, so then you're in the door doing jingles, and correct me if I'm wrong, you then did 20 jingles a month for 5 years.
Yeah, I know, man. That's when Loy moved down to Bombay. He used to live in New Delhi, and he moved to Bombay. And we really got along. Just as, first of all, as people, and of course as musicians, because we were always feeding off each other and talking about it and stuff. And we started composing jingles together. And, then we became like the composers in Bombay. So, so we started getting a lot of work, and we'd be like in the studio 5 days a week, for every day of every month composing music, for commercials. And that was like really good because, one is, of course, you make a good living doing that. And,
sure.
Things about doing that. But the point is that you learn so much, because to write, like to contain the universe in 30 seconds is very difficult. Very, very difficult. You learn how to like write hooks. and make sure that, that what you do, you don't repeat again. So it helps a lot with the songwriting eventually. And I realized that when I got composing for movies, that all my jingle work that I'd done was of great help, and in terms of production, in terms of songwriting, in terms of presentation, and everything. So that was a very big learning experience for me.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I write ad copy, and over the years I've written ad copy like in 110 different industries over the last 20 years. But now, years ago, when I'd have to write a little ad in a newspaper or magazine, that's hard. It's not hard to write a big sales letter, but it's the same thing. So I know exactly what you're talking, because when you don't have a lot of real estate, man.
Yeah, that's it, man. And actually, I'll tell you what's the biggest thing that I learned with working in advertising that's really funny is how to deal with people, man. To deal with ad agency people.
Oh, they're horrible, man.
They come from the other end of the universe.
Yeah, they're really arrogant too.
Uncharted areas where you've not come across people like that. They'll tell you all kinds of things. Like I said, I had to compose a commercial about the development of the wheel, and they showed like this prehistoric man, breaking stone and creating a wheel with that, and they wanted music behind that. So I said, that man, I don't know what music was played at the prehistoric time.
At the dawning of time, I wasn't around.
So you have to create something. So that's where the challenge was, and then like we had one client who came in and we were doing this thing. It was full of sound effects and stuff like that. And I had the sound of thunder. And this guy actually tells me, man, that this doesn't sound like Indian thunder. It sounds like American.
You should. Hey, well, we bought it. We bought the clip in India. What the hell? What are you supposed to do? Wait till it's raining and stick a mic outside your window?
So that's the kind of people you have to deal with. And
Holy
I'm pretty
shit.
sure
It sounds like America. I don't want that American thunder on this commercial. That's crazy. Holy shit, man.
I'm sure music composers who do advertising all over the world have to deal with this. That's like a different breed of people. But yeah, man, it's good.
A trip.
I can't complain about what I went through that time.
Talk to me about, you mentioned it just now. I'm pretty sure this is what you're talking about. You had to make a commercial that went from prehistoric times to modern day. How did you wind up doing that musically?
That's what I just was talking about. Yeah, basically, I said we'll create a rhythm, which is not from any conceivably musical sound that we hear now, like skin drums and stuff like that. So we created something about we sampled a few like stones being rubbed together and that kind of thing, and created a rhythm out of that. So it sounded very organic. And I'm sure if you heard it on its own, it'd probably irritate the shit out of you because it sounded so dissonant. But it worked. It worked for the visual, And that's really the client saw that and he was like super happy, man.
That's amazing. You said those are Indian stones, not American stones. Did you tell him? Holy crap. Ehsaan, you did a really nice interview that I watched online, and you said some really cool stuff there that I want to discuss because I thought it was really interesting and very important to music, to the business of music, and to life in general, actually. So the first thing you said is, I'm here to learn something every day. I'm still a student every day.
Yeah, completely. And actually, that for me works on many levels. One is, of course, musical. The things that every morning I wake up and, maybe there'll be a new email in my box from a guy who does online jazz guitar classes, or I'll put on a video and try and cop something new, or, try and work out a new voicing for a 2-5-1 progression. Right now, I'm very into bebop. So I'm trying to learn the language of bebop. And then besides which, the thing is, things like, everyday things like compassion and, dealing with people, there's something you're learning every day. You've got to hang on to all those good things, and each day for you is a development. And I do very strongly believe in that. And especially, as a musician, you have to be a student of it every day. You cannot, rest on your laurels and say that, man, this is it. This is what I'm going to do and I don't want to do any more than that. You've seen it. I've seen it all over the world of people who do that and they just stick to this thing that they do and they suffer from this tunnel vision of I'm not going to do anything else. But then, man, when that dies out, you're completely screwed up. For me, I'm like, I'm into so many things musically, and I'm there's one whole different side of me. I'm into programming and I'm into doing like electronic music. So that is another avenue which I love. So I do all of that every day, and it's just fantastic.
It is cool.
And I think should do that, and whatever line of thing, whether you're in business or whether you're a doctor, whatever, there's something small to learn every day, and then that really takes you so far.
Well, plus as a business person, when you're running your own business, I think to me, over the last 20 years, I've been working for myself, the most important skill set you need to be adaptable, man.
Yeah.
Because stuff changes all the time, and you may be making a ton of money doing one thing, and all of a sudden it's gone literally overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got to be able to adapt. That reminds me of something. I interviewed a guy last week, a musician, and he's got a real nice attitude about things. His mindset is very similar to this. He says, I look at everybody that comes in my path that they were put there to teach me something.
Completely.
May not be something I want to learn even sometimes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah,
so yeah,
totally, man. Very
and
cool.
It's very yeah.
The other thing is you mentioned, and I want to. This is important because a lot of people have mentioned this to me. There's a danger of losing your authenticity if you're playing sessions only every day.
Yeah.
So if you could talk to that.
Well, actually, the thing is that this is what I've said that just literally from experience. I mean, not about myself. About myself to some extent, yes. But other musicians who were in the industry, who were very senior musicians when I joined, and they were playing guitar for years. I talked to them, and I'd hate to say it, it's like your brain is. It's like you've gone lazy in the head. You want to do your thing, play what you do, and a lot of it. It's not in something that you've been asked to create. It's something like a piece of music in front of you, and you play a little line and you get paid for it, and then you go home and you come back and do the same thing the other day. You're comfortable with the money. The point is, the moment you get comfortable with the money and you feel that there's nothing else that you need to do, it's the end of it, man, as a musician. I do believe that you've got to go home and still, I come home from a day's work, and where I'm like brain dead from the loud music and from the programming and from the dubbing and dubbing choir, dubbing this, Indian instruments. You get very tired at the end, but I do still come back and eat dinner, and then I sit in front of my TV. I've got my guitar on my lap, and I'm still doodling. And the next morning when I wake up, first thing I do is pull out a guitar and sit and play. Before I start my meditation in the morning. I always do like some yoga meditation in the morning. And I always play every day. And then I go to my table and I eat breakfast. And while I'm eating breakfast, I'm looking through what's happening on YouTube or what's in my mail, something new on Facebook, and then, try and work on it. Even just 2 notes of that or 3 or 1 bar of that, it just gives you such a fulfilling feeling. And especially in this day and age, where, I did a TEDx talk about that, is that how imagination is dying, because of visual media, because of the iPhone, and because of everything that you do, that imagination is dying, especially with the youth of today, So that's something you have to keep going. You have to keep feeding your brain. And then in return, your brain feeds you back. It releases all this good stuff into your body, which makes you feel good. This sounds kind of astral, but it is very, very true.
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, if people just Google your name, Ehsaan Noorani, and how imagination is dying, that TEDx talk will come up?
Yeah, I think it's Ehsaan Noorani on imagination or something, TEDx. So Ehsaan Noorani TEDx. That's enough, yeah.
Very cool, man. One of the things that you made me think of is when you're picking up your guitar for 5 minutes just to learn another line on something that is fairly trivial, but yet it's new.
Yeah.
Does that in any way also act as a prompt, an idea prompt for you at times?
Well, actually, the thing is, like I would, I've always done this, like a lot of people sit and transcribe like exactly what a guitar player's played and, then incorporate that into your playing and stuff like that. But somewhere, I can't remember whether it was Duane Allman or, some, like old time guitar player who quoted, or was it Roy Buchanan, who says that I like to put on a record and jam along with it. And, you jam along with it and you find a little phrase that you like, which you probably won't play correctly, but the vibe is correct because you've got it from that, but you're already interpreting it in your way. That's where a little idea comes from, and that a little idea, of course, as we know, can grow to be a grow to be a big thing,
Yeah, man. A seed becomes an oak tree. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and even in my songwriting in the studio, the way we write, it's all about little stuff, like a little guitar part that I may come up with, and then Shankar will play something, and Loy will play a little piano part. The next thing you know, you've got this whole tune developing. Each thing is clinging onto the other and taking the tune forward.
All right, so I have a couple of questions for you that Warren gave me. They're not on here. So so Loy is piano, and what does Shankar play?
Shankar is a singer. I mean, he sings with John McLaughlin in Shakti.
Wow.
So that he's one of the most accomplished singers. And I'll tell you something. This is really interesting. And John McLaughlin performed in Bombay with the Fourth Dimension, and Shankar was sitting in the audience. And he said, if there's one person who makes me nervous, it's Shankar.
He said
Shankar,
that?
Yeah. And the thing is, Shankar's musicianship is so high up. I mean, he is one of the most accomplished musicians I've ever come across, period. He's singing, forget it. He's just a good, but he is, as far as Indian classical styles go and folk styles, he's like an encyclopedia of it. And not only is an encyclopedia, he does that and he performs it exactly the way it's supposed to be done and better.
That's cool, man.
So he's really, I mean, he's up there with any Indian classical musician that you can think of. He doesn't think so, but I think so. Like anybody, you call it Ravi Shankar or whoever you want.
Yeah, but most people that are really successful don't think. Yeah, they don't. It's not it's more like a humility than a boastful. Even if they're confident, they're not like, yeah, that's true. No one's going to say, oh yeah, that's right. They're going to say, well, thank you very much. I try hard.
Yeah, he went to Switzerland the other day. To France.
No.
And he performed at the Monaco Jazz Festival with John McLaughlin. And John, they discussed the tunes like 1 hour before the gig, and then he just learned them up. I said, man, that's tough. So he said, man, I was very nervous. So John is so confident. He said, don't worry, you'll learn all this stuff and perform.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
okay. So how did you get together with Loy and Shankar? Because Warren said that's a real good story.
But actually, Loy moved, like I said, he moved back from Delhi. We started doing commercials together. And Shankar was a computer engineer. I mean, a very, very accomplished computer engineer. And he was going to join Oracle or something and move to Silicon Valley. And he got discovered, and he started singing jingles and stuff like that. And we used to call him to sing with us. And also because he was such a great goldmine of Indian classical, so when we had to do something like a corporate film or something which required, like an Indian classical background or, some influence of Indian classical, we'd call him and we'd work together. So it was already a very good team happening there.
But he wasn't a professional musician. He said he was a computer guy.
Yeah, he hadn't decided that he wanted to be a professional musician yet.
Wow.
And basically, I got a call from this filmmaker, Mukul Anand, who passed away some years ago. And he called me, and he was making ad films there because, ad films was where all the technology and all the pizzazz was. There's a lot of, whereas Hollywood industry that time was pretty stagnant in terms of technique and everything. So this filmmaker had gone over to advertising because he wanted to learn all that. And so we worked together, and he called me up and said that, I'm making a film and I want you to do a song for it. I must say, initially I was apprehensive because, knowing what Bollywood music and Bollywood films were about at that time. So I said, Mukul, I'm not really interested. I'm very happy doing jingles, So he said, no, man, I'm the biggest filmmaker there is, which is actually he was. He's done a lot of big films. He's saying,
that's pretty cool to be able to say that. No, man, I'm the biggest filmmaker there is.
he says, do one song for me.
Right.
Let's try one song. So I said, I'd like to work with these two guys, Shankar and Loy. I mean, there was no plan. There was no band. We just got together and we did one song, and that became a career.
That's amazing, man.
It's been like 23 years.
23. What's also cool is that to get along together, that says a lot, man. I mean, each person you add to an equation is like, it's not 50% harder or it's like logarithm, exponentially harder.
Yeah.
That says a lot about you guys, man. That's really cool. Congratulations. The other thing is, and maybe this was what you're talking about through this track, Warren said that you guys basically helped change the sound of Bollywood in the 90s. Was it through working with this fella?
No, that is not it. In fact, we did that film actually that we made never happened because he got a heart attack and he couldn't complete the film, but the music got released. the music got released, and we got a little attention from that. And then there was this friend of mine called Farhan Akhtar, who I send you? I sent you the soundtrack of a film called Rock On.
You sent me. I listened to everything you sent me. The problem was most of it was not in English, so I had a really hard time like retaining and following some of it. To be honest with you,
so I was making his first film, and he said that I want to work with you guys to do the soundtrack. But I don't want to do anything that's been done in Bollywood, what is prevailing in Bollywood. I don't want any of that sound. So he said, sure. I mean, we are your guys because, we are not from there at all. We do jingles and we're rock musicians and we're jazz musicians and stuff like that. So we did music with no pressure on us that we have to live up to anything or try and create anything that's been done before. And we created the soundtrack, which was really unique. I mean, it's very, very different from what was happening at that time. And when the music came out initially, I mean, the record company said that, no, man, we don't want this, is not going to sell and stuff like that. One record company said that, yeah, I like it, I'm going to release it. And it became like the biggest hit of the decade.
Really?
And the thing is, what is amazing, that suddenly we'd meet musicians who tell us that, man, I'm a rock musician, but now after hearing this soundtrack, I want to get into composing for Bollywood. You all have given us the hope,
Oh,
so
wow.
We literally changed the sound of Bollywood with that one soundtrack. We introduced rock, we introduced techno for the first time, which nobody really used, like trance and techno and that kind of stuff. A lot of world music influences. So it is a very eclectic sounding album. And I'll send that to you sometime.
What year was that? And what was the name of the soundtrack?
It's called Dil, D-I-L, Dil Chata Hai, which is C-H-A-H-A-T-A.
Yep.
H-A-Y, which means what the heart wants.
Dil Chata Hai, what the heart wants.
Yeah. And that film became really big. And in fact, it is so strange that a lot of things happened after the soundtrack came out. I came across on the forum of Dil Chata Hai, there was a lady who emailed me, messaged me. Her name was Ruth Greenwood, and she's from New York. And she liked the music of Dil Chata Hai, and I replied back to her. I said, thank you very much, And she's saying, I'm a songwriter too, but I haven't written songs for a long time. And then we got talking, and then suddenly she got this kick, and she bought a guitar and started songwriting again after all these years, after many years. I meet her every time I go to New York.
That's so cool, man.
In Nashville. So cool, man. That is so beautiful. That story always really gets me. But yeah, so that happened.
So wait a minute. So your music basically inspired someone to start their career up again.
Yeah.
Man, that is so cool.
Completely, man. Ruth Greenwood, man. If she's hearing this, I'm pretty sure that she will. She's listening to this. Hello to her, because she's really, really lovely person.
Very cool, man. That's awesome. Wow, that's awesome. The whole thing is cool. The other thing, I know it's important for you. You make a deliberate and conscious effort to stay grounded. And I've picked that up from watching some of your videos and your speeches, and just from talking to you. Was there ever a time where you felt you were losing some of the grounding, and did you have to do something to get back, like that maybe things were getting to your head?
Actually, the thing is that, what I really was very thankful about is that, we were already successful before we joined the film industry, where we were doing, jingles and stuff like that, So, I mean, it was not, we were already number one there, and it didn't really matter. We were just doing it because we loved the work. And then when the film industry thing kind of happened, we were already a little, a lot older. We were already past our 30s, already into our late 30s when, all this started happening. So I guess that age was a little better to handle success.
Yeah.
As opposed to 22 years old and getting all this, thing. Of course, I mean, there are times when you felt it slipping away where you throw a little attitude towards somebody. But, I mean, we'd probably do a self-check about that and, never to do that kind of thing again. And I do believe, especially with fans and stuff like that, you hurt one fan, you've hurt the lot.
Yeah.
You owe it to them because, man, you don't survive without them. So I think it's always necessary to be grounded, in every way, whether it's you're working with a new musician. I've heard of, older composers who are very bullying towards new singers and new musicians who came and played with them, but, we made sure that we never, because we're musicians ourselves. We don't want to give us this label of, what they call in Bollywood, they call music director, so to say, just completely different from what a music director in the USA. But, so we never wanted to give us this label. I mean, we're musicians and we're here to do the music because we love doing it and we have a good time doing it. So, I mean, if you keep that in mind, you're already grounded.
Yeah.
But if you think that, man, I want like I want a big car and I want, or you suffer from the bigger car syndrome, which a friend of mine warned me about. He's saying now that you're going to make money, don't suffer from that. That you want to buy like a Honda, then you want to buy a BMW, and next thing you want to buy a Rolls Royce, and then you want to buy a private jet. He's saying don't take that pressure on yourself. The success will come. Stay grounded, and we always stuck to that. And I, especially me, I've always felt that I should be that way, and it's helped me, man, a lot, and helped me with my relations with people. There's so many people who are very, very fond of me, So that, it was all the way, from employees to people you work with to friends, and
Man,
anybody.
You can never get a bad rap for being too nice,
Yeah, true.
I mean, and to some extent you have to count. Yes, it's a bit of an obligation, but hey, you entered this entertainment field. Now you got fans. You can't say, well, I don't want fans. You got to accept the good with the whole package, sort of, I think,
Yeah.
And it ultimately, the extra 5 minutes that you may have to give somebody means so much more to them versus what it costs you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really.
So, what are you, and thank you for answering that, man. What are you working on, or are you working on anything particularly now that you're excited about?
Well, actually, we've got quite a few movies that we're working on right now. One is based on this queen who in 1897 rose up, was the first Indian to rise up against the British rule.
Oh,
the East
wow.
India Company.
Yeah.
And she was the Rani of Jhansi, which the film, I'll email the name of the film to you, Mani Karnika. It's kind of it's called Mani Karnika, but it's kind of difficult to remember the name. But that's very exciting because it's a period film and we've had to compose for that. So it's all very grand and very, there's a lot of battle and a lot of emotion in the music. That's good. But what I'm really excited about a lot is that, I've started writing to record some tunes for an album finally.
Correct.
And, Warren's been kicking me, man. He's saying that, man, you have to do it.
You do have to.
And he's saying, man, the guy who should have done it long ago was you. It's, man, we've always, been friends of yours and you've always tried to encourage you. Now you must do it. So I've started working on it. In fact, I want Warren to produce a little stuff from it. So that'll be fun.
Well, please, man. And when it's finished, please come on the show and debut it or launch it or whatever you'd like. I'd love to talk about it, man.
For sure.
That'd be great. You want to go on public as a record? Want to go on record as the date that you think it'll be finished or
no? I don't
recorded.
No, I don't do that. I don't want to do that. But actually, the thing is that I have a very crazy schedule, in terms of recordings and gigs and stuff like that. It's like a lot of work. But yes, I have been taking time. I'm lucky that I've had a few days off now.
Good.
So I've been working on stuff. I've got a couple of riffs down. I've got loads of stuff on my mobile phone.
Good.
Which I'll pull out of because I want to do like a vocal album because I honestly I love guitar and I love guitar solos, but I myself get bored of very long guitar solos, so I want to make it like a vocal album which can be performed and you can get interaction from an audience, so that kind of stuff.
Excuse me, you did some real nice blues stuff on in some clubs around town.
Yeah, man.
It sounded great. It's so funny, man, because this is like a whole world here. Again, I know I sound ignorant and I apologize to all my Indian listeners here. It's the same shit that goes on here. A bunch of guys hanging out in the club, everybody having a good time, people smiling, laughing, same music. It's just,
that's it.
Sounded great, man. It was very cool to see.
Like a lot of those club dates were done in Calcutta. And there's a band there which is called the Saturday Night Blues Band who I performed with a lot. And we did a tie-up at this club with Fender, so that the gigs could be branded with Fender. And all the people who were performing at those gigs were people who were like endorsees of Fender in India and artists. And there's a singer called Ornima who she's sung quite a few things. She was actually very responsible for pulling me out there and getting me to perform. Man, you got to get out there and play the blues.
Good.
So I did that, and so it was fun. Then we took the gig. We started performing all over India quite a lot.
Where's Calcutta? How far is that from you?
Calcutta is a 3-hour flight from Bombay. It's on the east coast of India.
And
it's on the east of India. Yeah.
Bombay's on the west coast, correct?
West coast.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that keyboard player was pretty good too. You guys, you and him had a good vibe going.
That was not Loy, right? Bald guy.
No, it was a younger kid, actually. I mean, kid. I'm 55. Everybody's a freaking kid to me. He looked like he was probably late 20s, maybe early 30s.
Okay, I know. I've got to see the video and see who that was.
Yeah, you guys had a good vibe together. Also, when you were playing with this young kid in when you did that master class, you guys had a good little thing going.
Yeah. That's fun.
What would you say? Is it possible for you to pick the top 3 experiences you've had musically for any reason? Could be live, could be in the studio, could be jingles, whatever.
Well, musically speaking, it's kind of weird. One would definitely be going to MI. I mean, definitely that was like a big thing. The second would be, getting into the studio business. I mean, getting into the studio industry or music industry, and a strange experience, which I think has kind of molded my life and taken it in a particular direction, was my father's death. Because suddenly, I came under the influence of his brother, who actually didn't want to be an architect like my father. Because, we in India, we have family businesses, we have joint families, and a lot of people do what their parents are doing, what their fathers do. They take over the father's business. And so, unfortunately, my father died and my uncle had to become an architect, and which he didn't want to do. He wanted to go to Marseilles and write poetry, and that kind of stuff. So when I was finishing school and I was completely confused about what I wanted to do, whether to, because you think about being in this country and you want to be like, do work at a job or something and make some money. He was the one who said, just go study music, man. I'll pay for it. And
so had he not had that experience himself,
yeah, I would have done that,
You would have probably been an architect.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, it's just crazy. So that is definitely, and in fact, personally and spiritually and in many ways, my father's death was a turning point in my life. Even though I was sick, vibrations of what happened then, even now, which have affected me in my life. So, it just happens all in a particular way, and you got to realize that as bad as an experience it may be, there's in the bigger picture is going to have an effect on you somewhere in the future, which would probably be very good also. Yeah.
It's just hard to, at the time, of course, it's never easy to look for the, find the silver lining, so to speak, Wow. Right, that's really cool. Is your mom still around?
Yeah, my mom's around. She's always been a housewife.
She's always been. I'm sorry, it broke up.
Like just she never worked. My dad worked, and then after that, So she's kind of, she's really sweet. I mean, she's looked after me and made me into the person that I am in many ways. In terms of everything that she's taught me and all the love that she's given me. And my 2 sisters. I've got 2 sisters, one older and one younger. And not growing up with a father, we never felt the lack of it because she was like father to us.
Wow. Man, that's awesome. That's very heartwarming the way you say that. Is she near you? Like living? Does she live close?
No, she lives in the same city, but she lives about 45 minutes away. I'm going to drive down there.
That's cool.
And she's my biggest fan. And she keeps every newspaper cut. And she wants to know about every time I'm on television. She'd call all her friends and tell her Ehsaan's going to be on television. After 23 years, it's really fabulous.
That's awesome, man. What a support section, man. Well, you had an older sister and younger. Let me ask you this: were you great with girls? You must have been great with girls because, like, all my friends who had sisters were like really good talking to girls growing up.
Well, actually, the thing is that I must say, in school and stuff, I was pretty inadept. I was like really not. I was very shy, even though I grew up with all the girls and stuff like that, because I had all women around me, my mother and my 2 sisters. But I learned a lot of other stuff from them. But the thing is that I was not very confident with girls. But when I went to LA. And when I came back, I came back completely hip.
Oh, yeah.
I came back like looking like what an LA studio musician would look like. Hair slicked back, wearing Miami Vice kind of clothes, that kind of thing. And then suddenly the women started coming out of the woodwork. Man, you're so cool and stuff like that. Yeah, that was pretty cool, man. That is a big changing point for me.
Well, I think, in all honesty, moving across the world like that, that's a pretty ballsy move. I mean, I think you need a lot of courage to do that, even though it was like, somebody was financially sponsoring that particular trip. I think it still took a lot of courage to just go, especially the whole thing. Like you said, you're in a classroom. You didn't know there's millions of Indian people there that when you spoke, it wouldn't be weird,
Yeah.
That's
So
really cool.
it is pretty cool. You know, we met all kinds of people, and that was the main thing you got.
Were there any low points for your career where things
Well,
weren't
actually,
happening?
initially, one is that I said we worked on the director died, so the film never came out. So we literally thought that our career is over. You know, I mean, and in fact, we kind of got like a disheartened that maybe it's a sign that we shouldn't be doing this. You know?
Oh yeah, I can understand that.
That is really depressing. But the thing is that what happens is that in India, when a soundtrack releases, I mean, your music maybe is like a super hit before your film releases, and if your film becomes a hit with it, then the music stays. You know, like the soundtracks that we spoke about earlier. But when the film flops, very often your music just goes and disappears with it. And the record company doesn't have the vision of like, you know, marketing the music like a rock album or something, you know, where you do a lot of other stuff around it and create the artist and promote the artist and do other stuff. So that is very disappointing. But then after a while, we kind of figure that actually nothing goes to waste. You know, I mean, any song that you've written and, you know, the film doesn't do, you still have the song. You know, I mean, though it belongs to a producer because it's all work for hire. But it's all up and down. It's like the roller coaster of life. You know, you cannot go through it all on a high all the time. You know, you have to hit that low in order to experience a high again. You know, it's just I've hit a few lows. You know, personally and career wise in terms of creativity with my guitar playing. The times when I just hated my guitar playing, I didn't want to play anymore. You know, I remember on our group on WhatsApp, I said, "Man, I want to like quit playing guitar." So Warren called me up. He said, "Man, just take a break from Bollywood and start doing your own album." And I'm telling you, you'll be back in it.
He's a good guy, Warren. He's a real sweet guy, man.
Such a lovely human being here. Really, very gentle.
Very kind, genuine person, man. Yeah. It was funny. It was funny because he was, my kids are much older. So when it was nice, you know, like he said, "Hey, listen, could we just start in a few minutes? I have to put my daughter to bed." It was like really cute, you know, because she's like 2 or something like that, you know. It was very nice to see that. Is there anything, Ehsaan, if you had to go back and like give yourself advice as a younger man, what would you have benefited from hearing?
Well, actually, I think once musically speaking, there'd be a lot of stuff that I'd want to change about myself. You know, when I was much younger, I remember that my guitar teacher, Bismarck Rodriguez, he wanted to always make me learn how to read music, and I would just be very lazy about it. You know, he'd bring that, you know, the Melbay method,
book one,
book one, and I just really didn't get past that. But even now I kick myself that I wish I'd read music then, you know, because I mean, I've seen people who read music well and play well, you know, where they can just open a book and play everything from that, you know. But I think personally, I cannot say that there's anything I want to change about myself, because everything that's happened for me is what has made me into the person that I am today. You know, whether it's developing empathy or developing, you know, being a kind person and, you know, everything. It's all the influence, everything that happened in my life earlier, every bad experience is also what's made me today into what I am. So, you know, I can't really say that there's anything I want to change about what happened then.
I totally get that, man. I'm with you. Just so you know, man, this is like it's very heartwarming because you've said empathy and kindness like 2 or 3 times each. So, you know, if that's what you're leading with, man, I think you should stay exactly the way you are, man. Those are pretty good traits. So good for you. Let's talk about gear for a little bit. Let's talk about your signature Fender Squire. I know there's a good story behind it. I know you're the only Indian artist who has one. So let's have at it.
Yeah. Actually, because the friend of mine called Jasbir Singh, he's the distributor for Fender in India. And, you know, Fender came into India, I think in 95 or 96, after getting no gear here. We used to get nothing in India. You know?
How is that possible?
We had to wait for people. Man, because of the import laws and stuff, that was all very closed market. And only like shopkeepers who travel abroad for the music messe or something like that would buy strings and bring them to India and sell them, you know, at like a very high price. Or friends of yours who traveled abroad, you know, got stuff for you. So we really struggled. And if you buy the Indian strings that used to get there, I mean, you could grate cucumber. It is like so bad. You know, I mean, you could hang somebody from that string. It was so bad. So we had to depend on that. And then this guy came in with Fender. You know, he spoke to the Fender guys, and then, you know, he managed to do it because the government was opening the market out. And he brought in Fender, and me, you know, already being successful in the Bollywood thing, you know, the success started happening around the same time. And I started doing because I love Fenders. I mean, they call me a Fender-holic, because I've got so many Fender guitars. And I met John. Gosh, I forget his surname now. John Sean from Fender. They had come down to India, and that time, he was pretty senior in Fender, and I took them around Delhi, and we spoke about guitars, and we went to the different shops and stuff like that. And they saw my knowledge of the brand and about the guitar, I mean, about all kinds of stuff, whether it was a nut width or whether it was the neck profile, the stuff that we don't know about, man. So they went back to America, and they spoke to Jasbir and said that we'd like to present something to Ehsaan. Is there any kind of dream guitar that he wanted? So I said I wanted a particular kind of guitar with 2 humbuckers and stuff like that. And John Cruz from the custom shop, he made the guitar.
Wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, they gave me the guitar as a gift, and then the next thing I know is that they've spoken to each other, and they said that they wanted to launch a signature line for me, but under the Squire brand, because Fender would be too expensive for people to buy here, and custom shop was out of the question. It's like buying a car. Buy a car. So basically, so we spoke about it. This is a really beautiful part of the story, that when I was in MI, the first guy I meet when I enter school is Chris Gill, who then he became my roommate and my best friend. And then I came back to India, and we used to write. There was no email then, sometimes sometimes try and call him and stuff like that.
It's like a proper pen pal.
Yeah. Then post 97, we started corresponding. We started emailing each other. I managed to get his email somehow, and then next thing I know, that he was working with, which I said is superb. He lived in Artsdale, and he worked at the Fender factory there at the office. And then he was in charge of Squire. Now Squire started this artist program all over the world, and they sent me an email back saying that you're going to be really happy to know the person who was in charge of your guitar is Chris Gill. I mean, my best friend.
How cool is that?
Goosebumps thinking about it.
Dude, what kind of karma?
I mean, what kind of karma is that? And then I meet him. He came to India, and then I went to NAM, and I met him there after a long time, and I walked him, and he's saying, Ehsaan, I want to show you something. And there was an entire wall with my picture on it, with this kind of squiggle that I'd written about, about how when I learned my first song that I learned. And in the middle of NAM, so people are passing by me, say, "Hey man, you're the guy on the poster." So, yeah, that's me. So, and then we talked about the guitar, because I wanted 2 humbuckers. I wanted the switching system to be different, so that you get all the strat tones, but in the middle position you don't have the middle single coil, but you have a combination of the neck pickup and the bridge pickup, so that you get like a Les Paul in between kind of sound, a fat in between kind of sound. Then we decided on a smaller neck, because most Indians have small hands, like I do also, and locking keys, which were made from a big key making company. And that was it. The switching and everything is very successful. We came out with 4 colors initially. Then we came out with a limited edition gold sparkle.
That's a pretty guitar. I think I've seen you playing that one. It's a really nice looking guitar. Yeah.
And there's only a few left in India now. I mean, there's just few shops which have a few of them, but the rest of them are all gone. The people loved it, and a lot of up and coming guitar players bought it, and it was just, and they also felt good with the brand association.
That's fantastic, man! Congratulations. Nice story.
I've had a lovely relationship with Fender after that, and with everybody, from the custom shop. Mike Geegan's a good friend. I'm in touch with him. I've ordered a lot of custom shop guitars, and he's always so helpful, and it's fabulous.
That's really cool. Do you still get to talk with Chris?
Of course, all the time. In fact, I was on Skype with him just the other day to wish him Merry Christmas.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm very close to his family, his folks and everybody.
And he lives out in LA?
No, he lives in Arizona. He lives in Scottsdale.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
That's a nice story, man. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm so happy your guitar did well. That's great. Not a better guy you could find. As far as playing guitars in general, what's your primary go-to guitar, and what other 2 guitars would round out your top 3? Not guitars that you need in the studio, guitars you'd like to reach for.
Okay, actually, one is I've got a Telecaster, which is made of mahogany, which is a gold sparkle guitar with these 2 Lola Imperial pickups on them. That is a sweet sounding guitar, and it snarls when you put the drive on. So that's a beautiful guitar. I like this one, which is right next to me, which is a custom shop Strat made by Greg Fessler.
Yeah, that's a really pretty guitar. So it's a Is that gold or brown? I can't see it.
It's Aztec gold, yeah.
Yeah, it's a gold Strat
gold.
with
and
a.
I use for all the Shankar. Yeah.
Oh, you use that for all the
So
Shankar
that is
EhsaanLoy.
all of it, and actually a lot of gigs. I've used them for all kinds of gigs. This guitar is really versatile. And my other favorite guitar is my 1986 Paul Reed Smith, which I bought when I was in MI, actually. And there were two instructors at MI, Steve Trovato and Keith Wyatt. And they had become like kind of agents for Paul Reed Smith because Paul Reed Smith hadn't really become big at that time, though he did come and do a little seminar at school when I met him. And that's when I decided when I was coming back, and also partly saving the money on the ticket was to put it into the Paul Reed Smith.
Yeah, good move.
So I bought for a princely sum of $1,300 at that time. It was like a PRS Standard 24, which I still have, and it's just such a beautiful guitar. And then there's a lovely story to that as well, And I've always loved Paul Reed Smith guitars. And a friend of mine, an Indian friend of mine from Chicago, was at the Sweetwater Gear Fest, and he met PRS there. And he told PRS, that, this friend of mine in India who's got quite a few of your guitars. He's saying, man, you're not going to believe it. I'm going to India in the next 2 weeks because he wanted to come here to choose Rosewood. So I met Paul Reed Smith for breakfast.
Holy shit.
And he took my guitar back to update it and whatnot. And then I picked him up again when he came back from his tour of India. I took him out for lunch and took him out shopping. And now he's a friend.
That's so cool, man.
Him, I can buy guitars from him. He's so cool, really.
That is so cool, man. Really awesome. Oh, you know what? That reminds me. You recently had lunch with somebody else, man. Man. It was dinner. Tell your story, dude, because you sent me that photo. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, something? I believe Joe Walsh has been coming to India for a couple of years, for whatever, for whatever relaxing, or, he's got some spiritual connection here. And this time, and the first time that he came down, he met a friend of mine who incidentally is a guy called Suresh, who was the first Indian to own a Fender Strat in 1963. It was the first Fender Strat that ever came to India, and I played it the other day with Joe Walsh, actually. And that was like the first 63 kind of guitar that I picked up, and it was so beautiful.
That must be gorgeous, man.
Yeah. So somebody told Joe Walsh that if you're going to India, get in touch with Suresh. And Suresh called me up and said that, man, I've got Joe Walsh coming for dinner. This was about 3 years ago. I couldn't go that night because I had a gig in Calcutta, actually. So I missed out on that. And then subsequently he came again. And this year he came down for a wedding. There was this big mega wedding that happened in India. And he obviously knew the, people involved in the wedding. And they invited him and his wife down. And he came down to Bombay. And then after that, I met him at the airport. I met him at the airport. I was leaving. I said, man, that's Joe Walsh. So Loy and I were like overjoyed. So I told Joe that, I'm a friend of Suresh's. And, so he said, oh, man, that's really cool, And the next thing I know, Suresh called me up saying that, Joe's coming over for dinner on Saturday night. So why don't you come and bring Loy with you? And I said, man, I am on.
Tell me, you don't have to tell me that twice.
It was superb, because we sat, and I'll tell you, I didn't ask him about Hotel California or anything about those songs, but he started playing it. He started playing it, and he's saying that, man, this is the kind of part I played at the back. And because we were talking about songwriting in general. And then he played Life in the Fast Lane, the riff before the Life in the Fast Lane. And I'm telling you, you can play it, anybody else can play it, but when Joe Walsh plays it, it sounds like it sounds on the album. It sounds like Joe Walsh.
What was he playing, electric or an acoustic?
Electric.
What was he playing?
He was playing that 1963 Strat that belonged to a friend. Yeah.
Out of...
Sorry, there's a little amp. I can't remember the name of the amp, but it's a little amp just on the ground.
Was that weird seeing Joe Walsh play that line? That had to be like, holy crap. It's like royalty almost.
Yeah, man. And then after that, he went on to play Sleepwalk, which was superb. He played, Sleepwalk by the Shadows.
Oh, the old, yeah.
Song. He played that, and he played it in the traditional way, using the tremolo arm and, dragging these chords back, sliding these chords back. And I just said, man, so he's saying, man, I come from all this. This is my influence, And so we were talking about a lot about the state of music today, and, how guitar players now, they've all just become YouTube artists and Instagram artists. But gone is the time when, a guitar player would be like, featured and be like on the front page of a, record, of a music magazine.
Yeah.
Stuff. It's the way the music industry's changed. So there's a lot about that. And of course, his pet topic, which is politics, he loves to talk politics.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah, he loves to, yeah. Very interested in politics, and he wanted to know a lot about the Indian scene and whatnot. And his wife Marjorie, she's a sweetheart. She's an absolute sweetheart. She's
Well,
so
man,
Ringo Starr's,
he's probably had like 5 of them. You got to get it right at some point in time.
she's Barbara Bach's sister, who's married to Ringo Starr.
Oh my God! So she must be gorgeous because Barbara Bach's really pretty.
Very, very, pretty. And they were very lovely to talk to.
That's nice,
And
man.
he told us a lot of his stories about the songwriting, how the Eagles wrote songs, and what they do. And I asked him, what is it like to be touring now? Because I mean, it is like hard on his body and stuff like that. So how do you do it? So he's explaining the whole thing. How they've cut down on it. He's saying, and the way it is, it's like a business now. So you have to do it. It's like you're playing a tribute to the Eagles every day.
Well, it's funny because I saw that show, not this tour, but 5 years ago they came out. That was supposed to be their last tour, and it was a very similar thing. They had like, and if I think correctly, they even bought out like some of the old guys to play on stage with them. But they had a whole retrospective, and they had all like the giant video screen. It was a great show, and he played my favorite Joe Walsh song, which was "In the City" from the movie The Warriors, and so that was because he did his own set there too. It was like a 3-hour show. It was really good. So
I spoke to him about Rocky Mountain Way and about the talk box and stuff. That I thought that he invented the talk box, but he actually didn't. He's saying that when he was in Nashville, he met this guy who was a guitar player who made all kinds of stuff, and apparently the guy was clearing out his garage, and he said that, man, Joe, do you want this? So Joe took it and used it for Rocky Mountain Way, and then Peter Frampton used it on Do You Feel Like We Do, and then it became like a whole cult kind of sound in itself.
Very cool. So it sounded like he had a great night. He was just like telling stories all night.
Yeah, it was really lovely, and he's such a lovely guy. He's just like so lovely to talk to, and loves to talk about music. I mean, he came in there and he was talking about music, like right away about guitars and what guitar do you like. And then when he left, he left before us. He put his hand on my shoulder and he's saying, "You, my man, have to record a blues album." So I said, "Yes, I will."
Oh man, you got your marching orders. That is so cool, man. That's really
so lovely.
I heard him. I'd love to get him on this show. Joe, if you are listening, come on this show. We'll have a blast. I heard him on like another podcast, and he was talking about the physicality of, that he, at least for himself, if I remember correctly, he goes to the gym now to stay in shape to do all this stuff. Cause he's got to be in his early 70s, maybe.
Easily, and he's into meditation and stuff like that, which is really fabulous. And I think India's a big part of that whole thing that he does, which is really fabulous.
That's really cool, man. I'm really glad. When you sent me that, I was like, man, I hope because she said, "Oh, I think I was like, man, I had my fingers crossed here. I'm glad it worked out for you." That's
like a super fanboy moment for me.
Yeah. Who could it not be a fanboy moment for, man? Warren told me to ask you about Frank Zappa and Jaco Pastorius.
Oh man, that was something else. There's a night back in 1980 when I'd gone to England with a cousin of mine, and then we went on to Europe for a holiday, and we went to this little town in Germany called Dortmund. Mm-hmm. And Dortmund is like a little industrial town, which was very, very prevalent during World War II, I think, for manufacturing of arms and stuff. I think so. And there was this festival going on there. On Friday was Frank Zappa. On Saturday was Led Zeppelin with In Through the Outdoor.
Holy crap.
On Sunday was The Who. And on Monday was Pink Floyd The Wall. And and
this was in 1980.
1980. And the only tickets that we got were for Frank Zappa. And we landed up there, and it was a tour for an album called I Don't Want to Get Drafted. Mm-hmm. And what a band, man. I think Chad Wackerman was playing drums and Ray Brown was playing bass. And it was fabulous because the band started and Frank Zappa didn't come on. He hadn't come on yet. In the second song he walks on, he goes to the mic and he sings a bit of one of the songs from the album. And then he plays like a blistering guitar solo using a wah-wah and on his Cherry Bass Les Paul. And then he turned around and he went and sat in front of his amp and he put on headphones and he started practicing. He was practicing with headphones on. When the song got over, he came back to the front and did one more song. It was mind-blowing. The musicianship was on some other level. Really on some other level. And that was a rare one because, man, I mean, nobody's seen Frank. I mean, very few people have seen Frank Zappa. I mean, in the sense that I'm sure all of you all in America have had a chance to see
Yeah,
him.
but in India, I'm sure not many at all.
And no way. And, for me, I was very happy that I was into that kind of music back then. So we went and saw the concert. And
what a crazy, sorry, I'd apologize. I'm going to cut you off. Just to mention the festival, though, think of that lineup. Zappa, Zeppelin, The Who, and Pink Floyd. That's a festival, man.
That's good. And really, we couldn't get tickets for any of the other concerts, but we managed to get 2 tickets for Frank Zappa.
That's great.
Which is really fabulous. And then Jaco Pastorius, man, when I was at MI, Chris and I, we just got back from lunch, and we walked past this cabin where, one of the guitar instructors called Joe Diorio, you heard of him?
Sure. Yes. What
a fabulous guitar player. He was sitting there, and then Chris pulled me back, man. He's saying, "Hey, son, do you recognize the guy sitting opposite him?" So I said, "No, who's that?" He's saying, "Man, that's Jaco Pastorius." I said, "Oh, man, that is something." And then they announced that Jaco was doing a little gig in MI. So he had one of the students playing, and he had Frank Gambale playing guitar. And Jeff Berlin introduced him to the audience. And of course, he did a lot of question and answer. He was really sweet, actually. One had heard stories about him being this, mean kind of guy, but that we don't know what went on with him on the street and, what happened to him eventually. But he seemed pretty cool. And he was, talking about, his how he loves the blues and, how it's very important to play the blues first and then play everything else, play R&B first and then play everything else, then step out into jazz, work on your groove and stuff like that. He was using a borrowed bass. In fact, I think the video is on YouTube of him playing with Frank Gambale.
Jaco and Frank Gambale at MI. Yeah. Thanks, man. What was your first guitar?
My first guitar was a 1979 Fender Strat that was made out of the heaviest ash possible.
So it was a proper Fender, though.
It was a proper Fender, with the big headstock.
Sure.
And it had a really lovely sound, and but it was super heavy. That guitar saw me through MI, and then from MI I bought the Paul Smith, and I left the Strat with a friend of mine to carry back, and he brought it back later. But I've given it to a friend of mine, like on a permanent loan to use, and I guess I'll take it back whenever I want. But it's a nice guitar, but the 70s guitars were not so good. But having said that, I've got one 1976 Strat here, which is beautiful, which I used for many years, which is very similar to that, but much lighter and much more resonant, with a lovely dark kind of sound, which is really lovely.
That's cool, man. Do you have any Gibsons at all?
I have a Gibson Les Paul, and I have a Gibson Custom Shop 336, which is like a smaller ES, like 335, but smaller. And right now I have a Gibson SG from the Gibson Custom Shop on order, which will take about 6 months to come, which I'm very excited about.
Dude, this is what I'm playing. I'm playing mine now. I love it. It's not a custom.
Oh, man.
It's just, I'm like you. I don't have, I'm 5'9", so my hands are like average at best. And this neck is so.
It's the slim 60s, which is so
60 neck. Yeah, 61, I think it is. I love it. It's so easy to play for when you don't have big hands. It's like perfect.
Yeah. Gibsons are iconic also. They were lovely guitars. Really.
Desert Island Discs, top 3.
That's a tough one. I was just thinking about it, and just from what I've been listening to for the last 2-3 days, I think the first album would be David Gilmour's solo album.
Really? His first one with There's No Way Out of Here.
Yeah, man, what an album.
Dude, what a record, man.
I mean, his sound, his playing, everything. And then I think the second album would be Paul McCartney and the Wings, Band on the Run.
Oh, great record, man.
That's a lovely album. I've just started listening to that again, and it's so beautiful. And the third would be Larry Carlton's Sleepwalk, which I've been listening to a lot of late. It's such a beautiful album. His playing is so soulful. He's a huge influence in my playing, Larry Carlton.
Carlton?
Yeah, but Larry Carlton, Rob Ford, and B.B. King, actually.
That's right. I think I heard you say that. I sent you Robin's interview I did, right? Did I send that to you?
Oh, that's beautiful. It was really lovely too.
Yeah.
He's so laid back.
Yeah. That was a good interview. All righty. So now the questions get kind of tough. So, I mean, not tough, but just, what are the most important things that you've learned about yourself throughout life in general and specifically in your career experience?
Well, actually, there's so much. Actually, one of the main things would be that, whatever, like I said, whatever hard times that you go through, you complain about it being like the worst time of your life. But I've also learned that, it does pay back later on in life. And, if you handle it properly, it'll probably make you into a better person.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that I've learned is that, when you're like right down at the bottom where, you feel like, like literally, it's all over, you have to realize that you can't go any lower and that you will rise up. And the few things that I've learned from the teachings of Buddha and my guru, who's Sri Ravi Shankar, who runs the Art of Living, which is a very famous movement. And the thing is that he said you always realize that the universe will not give you more than you can handle, and that's one of the things that I always follow. That man, even when you're very very down, that you will come back up. And the other thing I've learned about myself is that that everyone can be empathetic, and being empathetic is one of the most important things in life. Being kind and empathetic, that you have to be open to other people's problems and stuff like that. So I always do that. Sometimes maybe I get too involved, but but it really does pay back. I mean, and that could be anybody. And for me to promote another musician, like there's this guitar player who recently returned from MI, and I literally called up everybody because I wanted him to get the gig, and I got the gig, and that feeling was so beautiful. I was like more excited than he was. And I think that is so important, to help people and to push them forward, because really all of this that I achieve and all of the the money and the fame and all of it, nothing means anything unless you can use it to make somebody else's life better and somebody else more happy. I think a lot of it pays off that way.
Man, thank you. One question or a couple of questions. You've always been comfortable getting help. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Yeah. I was just curious. And so obviously helping others is not a problem, but I was just curious if you were always comfortable getting help. The other thing you mentioned, the universe will not give you more than you can handle. What is, and I'm only asking you because it sounds like you've gone out of your way to find a place where you needed to go if you're in that situation, like mentally. Right. What would you say to people that they're having a shitty time and they're feeling at the bottom, and how do they know the universe is not going to give them more?
Well, actually, the thing is, number one is to talk about it. Don't run away from the thing that you've got a problem and you're feeling upset. Don't be too confident about handling it by yourself. Sometimes it's very difficult to handle. And the thing is that stress and pain manifests itself in so many ways, whether it gets physical, it gets mental, and then you start thinking about all kinds of things. You want to get suicidal at times and stuff like that. If there is help to get, go and get it. And, and there's no, I see a counselor, like every 2 weeks, even now, just to maintain, and be in touch with, the thing that I did go through a very bad time in my life, and that you have to be reminded about it, but decipher it and handle it and discuss it to know that you shouldn't happen to you again. I do meditation every day.
How long do you meditate for?
I do pranayama. I do my pranayams, which is the part of the yoga thing, which is actually also meditation. I do about 20 minutes in the morning, and then I do about 25 minutes in the evening, which really helps. It really kind of settles you down. You get quiet in the head, and especially ours that we are, where we come in from, from the studio, being in the studio the whole day, your forehead buzzing with stuff, So you need to quieten it. So I sit, I light an incense stick, and I chant, and I do a particular thing that Art of Living taught me, which is a whole yogic and breathing procedure, which I do. I do it every day, and that really has helped me a lot. It's helped me a hell of a lot. The thing is that people should know that a physiological problem and you need to take medication, but it will go away if you first of all face it and if you accept it. Acceptance is the most important thing. That you should never say that everybody else around me is crazy and I'm fine. No, it's never that way. If you're not fine, you're not.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that. I've seen people do that. That man, everybody is like that. No, I don't need to see a shrink. What will he be able to tell me? He said, man, just go and talk to the person and see.
Yeah.
And helps, and it does help a lot.
Oh, hell, I've gone to counseling. It helps. You don't have all the answers in your head. Sometimes just having someone else walk through things objectively is a big help.
They just make it easier. Yeah. Eventually, the solutions only come from within. It only comes from within. Those people just help you on.
What do you like most about yourself?
Well, I think my main attribute that I like a lot is that I'm kind. I've grown up to be a kind person, and I think that's really, really important, to whoever it may be. And because eventually, what you give to the universe is what you get back as well. And that's not the reason I do it with any kind of ulterior motive where I'm going to be kind to people, so they're going to be kind to me.
Yeah. It's not like a payback.
Yeah, it's not a payback thing, but I just like to be that way. Like a smile. Even a smile is charity, as Muhammad the Prophet said, The thing is, so, just little things like that, especially in a country like India where there's so many divisions, there's no dignity of labor. So the guy who's chauffeuring your car is not somebody you're going to have dinner with, And so, they're treated in kind of strange ways, but I make sure that I treat all of them with utter respect and, kindness and the things that they've been working with me now for many years. Because of that, only because of that, not because of the money that I pay them, and I think that makes a big difference. There's a lot of little things like that, and the blessings of the poor, according to me, are the blessings which are invaluable. You can just be assured that blessings from them is a good thing to get.
So it's still like a caste system there, where you're in a certain.
No, it's not a caste system. It's because the economic divisions are so strong out here. You have the very rich and you have the very poor. The people and all who are working for you, luckily, because, the thing is that because there's so much labor available, you've got like a maid that comes in to clean the house every day and stuff like that. And they come from very poor, uneducated backgrounds, and the things I've seen a lot of them being treated very poorly, because the thing is that just because they're uneducated and they don't know how to talk properly and stuff like that doesn't mean that you treat them, in any bad kind of way just because you're paying them a salary.
Yeah, of course.
You have to be kind to people, and that really, it goes a long way. It goes a long way, in a relationship with these people.
What's your best childhood memory?
That's a nice one actually. When I was a little kid, we used to have this lovely house up in the at what you call a hill station in India, up in the hills, and named hill stations after the British called them hill stations because they had stations up in the hills. And so we had a house there, and every afternoon it was siesta time, so the whole family would be asleep. But I'd stay awake because the railway tracks were like opposite my house, like a little further away from my house. And that time we had electric and diesel trains. But only in the afternoon, there was a track repair train that went, which is driven by a steam engine. And the moment I heard the whistle of the steam engine, I'd run up to my terrace to wait and see the steam engine, which was so dramatic, with all that smoke coming out of the side. And for some reason, the engine driver would blow the whistle right outside my house, which was just a fabulous experience. It was such a picturesque experience for me. I'll never forget that.
So it was almost like you probably thought as a little boy he was blowing it at you, or that was the spot to blow it because it's near you. That's what everyone... That's what you would think as a little boy. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's a nice memory.
Yeah.
Very nice memory, man. Do you have any non-musical superpowers, Ehsaan?
Well, actually, I think I am intuitive. My sister is actually a medium, so she's got a very strong power.
Really?
And and she's a very, very good counselor. And I'm told that I have the same kind of powers, but the thing is that I'm not really focused because I'm focusing on so many other things.
Yeah,
which is cool.
You can only serve so many masters, right?
yeah, you really can only do that. But I do my bit too.
That's really cool. Your sister's a medium. I've always been open-minded to things like that, just to go through the experience. I mean, there's no downside to doing anything like that, I've always been...
Spirit exists. I mean, it exists within you, and it does exist outside of you as well.
Best thing that ever happened to you?
Music. I mean, and only music.
It's a great answer, man.
It's really the biggest thing of my life. You know how musicians are. Your biggest commitment in your life is to your music. So, I mean, it's like 85% of me.
What would you say your biggest business or personal win is?
Well, actually, I think for a musician, the personal win as far as business is concerned is trying to understand the business, because you know how we are. We could be totally reckless in 10 days, and that's the end of it all, But I think my success with the music with the business has been trying to understand A, the business, and B, understanding how to invest your money and stuff like that. Luckily, I've got good guys working for me, but I am very interactive with them so that I know exactly what's going on, and that's been a good thing. So so you do that. You have to do that. I think for any successful musician, or even not a successful musician, where you're working with a limited amount of money or whatever amount of money that you work, you need to have it put into a place properly, for all the right things when you need it, which is a fact.
Sure, man. Do you have any hobbies outside of music?
Oh, too many actually. I'm a huge student of World War II.
Oh, interesting.
I watch a lot of World War II documentaries, and I've got tons of books and videos. I'm kind of obsessed by the Holocaust and the entire thing that happened then. So I've got lots of books and stuff about that, which when people come into my house, they find kind of strange when they when they walk in the first book that they see the anatomy of the Auschwitz death camp. So
that's not.
But why would you?
Yeah, that's not a very common interest for people outside of that have not been affected from that. I think from Eastern European or Jewish cultures. I wouldn't imagine.
I don't know what it was. When I was 14 years old, I met my uncle had a friend over who lived in Uruguay, and not when I was 14. I was 12 years old. I remember. And he told me I wanted to meet this lady, whatever, and she's from Uruguay. I said, "Oh wow, that's in South America." So she said yes, and he turned around and told me that's where the Nazi criminal Dr. Joseph Mengele he hides, And ever since then, I just got interested in this whole thing about Nazi criminals and this and that, and from there, my interest grew in World War II. And so I do a lot of reading up. I probably watched every World War II movie that's been made. I plan to visit Europe sometime, maybe later this year, and visit some of the historical sites. And actually, I am obsessed with many things. I always love to research anything that catches my fancy. Whether it's religion or whether it's science or Loy and I talk about that a lot. A lot about theosophy and the origin of religion. And ritualism and stuff like that. And one of my other pet addictions, I say, is UFOs and aliens.
Wow. This is like a full gamut here. I mean, you're like a library of interesting information. This is great, man.
So I'm like on part of like every UFO group on Twitter and on Instagram, constantly photographs and this and that and whatnot. And man, like it's my dream to be abducted.
Be a hell of a soundtrack, right?
So yeah, I'm very, very into that, man. And both Loy and I actually sit and talk about it every day. Man, there's a sighting here, and I wonder what that's going to lead to. This is sign, and man, that's fabulous.
So funny. That's awesome, man. It's good you're a pretty diverse, interesting person, man. That's really great. That's really cool. No, it's nice to because I always like to learn stuff, so I like to talk to people if I could, we sit down and have a cup of coffee together, I can pretty much shut up for an hour and just listen to about all this stuff I don't know anything about, which I always find very interesting, because, new ideas, new topics, that kind of stuff.
And of late, like I said, ever since the last 10 years, I got into spiritualism where I started following Sri Ravi Shankar, and you must check him out. And Art of Living, it's really, really lovely.
Yeah, I wrote that down, Art of Living.
Yeah, about living well. And of late, I've got very, very interested in fact, a very, very controversial guy of his time called Osho. Osho, also known as Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. If you remember, he moved to Oregon in America and created havoc there. His entire lot created havoc there. And he was eventually asked to leave America, and he escaped and stuff like that. But the thing is that when I was growing up, I always thought of this guy, being of this, this controversial godman, and he propagated free sex and stuff like that. But now, as I'm older and I look back and I go into YouTube and I see all his discourses, I feel that this was one man who was ahead of his time. He was truly designing the religion of the future. You must check it out. He called himself Osho.
Spell
There's
that?
a lot of OSHO.
Okay.
And there's a lot of videos of him online, and it's really, really fantastic because he was so ahead in his whole concept of religion, his concept of spiritualism, and he had every argument of his was backed by like a deep knowledge into an intellect into the topic, which is really fabulous. So I read up a lot of his stuff right now, and I watch a lot of his videos, and eventually I think it's very nice to make place in your soul, I would say, for different kinds of things, because eventually it all amalgamates, and it even comes out in your music. Like right now, in this last 2 years, I've been going through a very, very creative time in my life, and especially in the songwriting, I'm coming up with ideas every day, little riffs every day, little programs which I'm doing, using synthesizers and stuff. So there's a lot been happening, and I do attribute it a lot to a lot of all the stuff that I'm doing as well.
I think everything's like an influence. You can't trace you connect the dots between how it's like websites. You go down the rabbit hole. You might start out looking at bunny rabbits, and next thing you know, you're looking at aliens, right? I mean, it's just that's just how. And I think ideas and especially music are the same thing.
Yeah. And there's all that energy that's in the cloud, so to say. And I don't mean iCloud. I mean the universal cloud, which is there. And, as musicians, I think, or as any creative person, you're kind of blessed that, you can do that. Because, very often when we sit and we compose a song and you compose like a verse of the song and you've got goosebumps, and then we ask each other, where did that come from? And you kind of wonder, it's not just something that happens in your brain. It comes from somewhere, because the emotional connect that happens when you create a good piece of music is so strong that, it uplifts the soul. So, it's got a spiritual energy to it. And according to me, every form of music has that, whatever you're playing, it could be the darkest material, but there is something there, and I think a lot of musicians should see that there is that side of them, and there is that side, that part of the music, which is all soul and all spirit. And if you look at it that way, it kind of enriches your music so much more.
Totally, man. I got 3 questions left, Ehsaan, and I man, and what is it, like 3:00 in the morning there? I can't even imagine.
It's just 15 minutes past midnight.
Oh, okay. It's still late. Thank you for everything. 3 questions. First, toughest decision that you've ever had to make, or the most difficult thing you've had to do?
The toughest decision that I would say, though it was made very easy for me, was to take up music professionally, because I was really scared. Because I saw what the scene was in India, and like I said, my uncle was the one who encouraged me. And I've actually said this before when I told him that man, he said you should go and study music. I said, what is the security in that? Because you think about these things being in a country like India. And so he said, there's no security in anything you do. Just because you go and study business management doesn't mean that you're going to be a good businessman. Or if you go and study filmmaking, doesn't mean you're going to be a good filmmaker. Just follow your heart. So that decision to say that, yes, I'm going, was very tough. But when I did it, and, when they helped me along with it, it's the best decision I made in my life.
Man, I can really see how your uncle was the single greatest lever in your life. 100%. Just like really cool guy. Very, very, very great role model. Second question, most embarrassing or funniest thing that's happened to you on stage or in the studio?
Oh man, there's so much that's happened. So I'll tell you, I'll tell you 2 incidents actually. One was when we were in college. I had a band called Crosswinds, with some very, very fine musicians. And we decided that we're going to make this. We used to play covers. And we decided that we're going to make our entry with this tune by Grand Funk Railroad. I can't remember what it is called. But it started with this lovely riff. It starts, and we said, we're going to fill the stage up. You see, we were all very amateur then. We didn't have good lights and good sound. So we said, we're going to fill the stage up with fog, and the curtains are going to open. And as the tune settles down into this D minor kind of chordals, like a pattern, the guitar player who's a singer will go up to the mic and start singing, and all the smoke will have cleared, and the curtains will have opened, and where we've started with the curtains shut, so the crowd will be like completely euphoric. So the thing is that we start the song, the curtains start opening, and we don't realize that the microphone is too close to the curtain, so it gets wrapped up in the curtain and disappears into the side of the stage.
Oh man, that's classic. That's
Oh,
hilarious.
and these were thick velvet drapes. You know how curtains in auditoriums are. They couldn't just get it open, man. So they had to like re-release the curtain so that we could get the mic out and start the song again.
Oh my God. That took the wind out of your sails.
And I'll tell you, man, the other embarrassing moment was that, when we were performing Shankar-Ehsaan-Loy, and I remember we were performing for this whole lot of students who had just graduated from Google, and they were joining Google. So, of course, the percentage of pretty women in the crowd was like massive. They were like, oh man, they were so cute. And I mean, that's a weakness, which I've got. Not to say that I have affairs or anything, but pretty women are pretty women. Yeah,
I think that's a weakness that any man has.
So anyway, so I was performing, and there's this lovely ballad that we were doing, which is in the key of A flat. It's very ambient, it follows the whole Sufi tradition, which is like, it's like a religious form of music. So it's very ethereal. And everything that I was playing on the guitar was with this quarter note delay, So when I do pow, pow, like almost like us and them, that's the way I treated my playing on that. And there was this girl who was in front of me, and I was looking at her, and in the middle of the song, which is an A flat, I played an A note with the delay, and there is nothing that I could do about it because this note just on in A over a tune which is an A flat. So Shankar looked at me and he's just shaking his head. And at the end of the song, I'd like to thank Ehsaan for playing that beautiful note on the song. It was crazy. It was really.
That's
I'll
awesome,
never forget that. Oh, God, I'll never forget that.
Well, at least your bandmates took it lightly and had fun with it.
Yeah, of course. It was a lot of fun.
And man, last question, and I cannot thank. I really enjoyed my time with you, and I'd love to meet you in person one day, and
for sure.
And thank you.
I'd love to too.
Last question is: biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this change has been intentional and deliberate, and how much is just a part of aging?
See, the thing is that I didn't have a very good childhood after my father died, and it was pretty rough. I naturally don't want to get into any details about that. But the thing is that I could have been a very cruel person, but I chose the other path, and where I felt that if I contain that pain inside myself and experience the pain inside myself, it'll probably be little better than like taking it out in anger.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose to be see, you don't choose to be it on purpose, but that's somebody chose for me to be that way. Maybe the universe to be be kind and always be loving, and that was a big thing. But later on, as I, post my 20s and all that, I started becoming, I think this had to do with my father's death. Probably the, not having come to terms with it because I was only 6 years old. Mm-hmm. I started becoming a hypochondriac where I every day would think that something was wrong with me.
Oh yeah, that's like it's like OCD almost. It's a manifestation of stress.
And then thanks to the internet, every 2 days I had a different ailment, and I call the doctor, and the doctor says that, man, you're absolutely fine, but so that is one thing that I'm very happy that I've left behind, that I'm not a hypochondriac anymore, and that also. Actually, and because of that, I've got a lot of good knowledge of medicine. And I've got
look at you. You're, even in this, you're finding the half full silver lining. Good for you, man.
So, in fact, it's so strange. I've got a couple of my friends who are doctors. One guy's an orthopedic doctor, and one person the skin specialist. And the skin specialist calls me up, like from Nepal or something like that, where she was doing a conference saying, "Man, I've got a really sore throat. Any suggestions as to what I should take?" I said, "You're the doctor, and you're asking me." She said, "No, man, your diagnosis is very good. Tell me what medicine to take."
That's so funny.
So I recommended a medicine, which was very cool.
That's great.
So that is one thing, and I generally tend to be a little, I overthink a lot, and as a result of which, that is always keeps me on edge, and I tend to be a little hyper because of that, and I tend to think 10 steps ahead when nothing has happened.
Yeah,
and. Create a problem where there's no problem just unto myself. That is one thing I've been, I'm very happy that I've left that behind, because that was interfering with a lot of things, including my creativity, so that is a good thing.
For sure, man. Well, yeah, I could understand all that, because when you have trauma as a child,
yeah,
because I had a lot of trauma as a child, it definitely leaves you, especially when you have to figure things out on your own. it definitely leaves you unsettled, and things like thinking about stuff that hasn't even happened yet and just expecting negatives. That's tough. You have to work to get over that, man. So props to you, man. Dude, I cannot thank you enough. Let me tell people where to find you. First of all, I want everybody to check out Ehsaan Noorani. I'll spell his name. It's Ehsaan Noorani, Noorani. And you can check out his band. The band is Shankar, Shankar, Ehsaan, again, EhsaanLoy, Loy. Those guys are the reigning kings of Bollywood music, and I'm sure your other two partners are just as cool as you are. Ehsaan's got a really cool Instagram channel. He puts a lot of good stuff on there, guitar wise and music wise. It's just Ehsaan, Ehsaan. So follow him on that. He's also on Facebook, and also, if you are interested in either taking lessons, guitar lessons, or if you're interested in working with him in a consulting capacity for guidance on composition, songwriting, and even finding your spiritual way, whether it's in general songwriting, general composition, or specifically for movies and soundtracks and jingles, this is a guy who's written 20 jingles a month for 5 years and then some. So he's probably got a pretty good track record to help you with. So, and where do you want him to hit you up on that? Is the best way to message you through Instagram or Facebook?
Well, actually, if they go to my website, which is www.ehsaannoorani.com.
Great.
There's an email link there which comes directly to me. So, I'll reply back to all of them.
Awesome. And I'll spell his name again. It's ehsaannoorani.com, EhsaanNoorani.com. Dude, I can't thank you. You're just awesome. This is really a pleasure. Was looking forward to this. You're a really sweet guy. Any final words of wisdom?
Well, actually, that's it. Like what I told, what I keep telling musicians and actually people in general that, every day is a learning experience. Doing that, eventually, it really adds up to so much in your life, with every little thing that you do. And the other thing is to keep the magic and keep being excited about the smallest things in life, because that's really what it's all about. Yeah, man. And I'd like to add into two things that you said several times, which is empathy and kindness. That goes a long way to making your life and everybody's life around you a lot easier. Yeah, I think that it's unbelievable that, that the universe gives back, man. I've seen it firsthand. It gives back to you, when you do good unto others and you do it with genuine heart, it comes back at you. It comes at you so beautifully, and it comes back to you tenfold, I think so, man. And I got back just from talking to you, man. So thank you. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with a friend in your social media channels. We appreciate your support and help with this. Thank you very much to Ehsaan Noorani for spending time with us. What a great guy. Please check him out online and go to his Instagram and support his music and all that good stuff, please. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.